Welcome to Overwatch. This game that we're going to look at here is actually a game that happened in between some community members fairly unintentionally on ladder. On one side, well, you see Mr. Joller here. This is one of our long-standing members, you could say, and he's one of our higher ELO players overall. Usually it's about diamond up in our group. We have what are Jessica and Chomped here. Now, I'm not actually going to go into their actual names because it doesn't really matter what their names are. But these are also two other players on or in the group. Now, what happened in this situation actually is one of these players helped boost up another player's Smurf account. And that player is now playing on that account at a ELO that is much higher than they normally would play at. There's a lot of misconceptions around playing at a higher ELO. Many times, lower ELO players will say things like, well, if I just played with players that know how to play better, I would do better. And so they think that simply by having better teammates, they improve their own skill. This isn't true. I always like to say this. If you're smurfing down, meaning if you're going down the ladder and you're playing against worse players, at least those worse players have an opportunity to win the game if they play better. If they want to be at a higher ELO, they have to be able to beat better players anyways. So it may not be the best experience throwing a Grandmaster into a silver lobby, but at least, and I know I'm kind of, I guess I'm summarizing things in a very simple way. That's not exactly it, but at least they do have an opportunity as a silver player to outplay that Grandmaster player. Whether or not they will, that's another thing. But if you are smurfing up, or you're being boosted up into another rank, what you're doing is you're subjecting players to your lack of information. Once you get to that higher rank, there are certain things that your hero needs to do to win the game, and your team is actually expecting you to do those things. So if the person in the game isn't achieving those specific goals, then there's actually nothing at all that their teammates can do to make up for that play. Again, there are some slight things that you can do. There's a reason why Grandmasters can go and do bronze to Grandmaster no problem and win almost every single game. And even though they're dealing with Smurfs and boosted people on either team and stuff like that, they still win those games. But looking at a game of average higher ELO players, they are going to be expecting a player to do their job. And without doing their job, they're not going to win the fight or the game overall. All right. That being said, let's take a look at our boosted player.
5.
My worry here is not the fact that this player is playing boosted. What we want to look at is why this game was so difficult and what the difference is between a lower ELO player, or what the actual result is from a lower ELO player playing it at a higher rank. One of the biggest things that happens at lower ELOs is they will either use their resources very, very early in the fight, so there's things that they'll do that will put them at a disadvantage before they can even get into the battle, or they will not actually use their abilities to achieve certain goals in that battle. You'll see this a lot in the game. Now, these are diamond players, so they're not perfect. You'll see his teammates and you'll see the enemy teammates make a lot of basic mistakes. But the difference is, a player that's a diamond will recognize when they're getting no value from their ability, and they will start to think about how they can get value from that specific ability. This player that we're looking at may play games in diamond, may win games in diamond, and may do the kind of average stuff that their team expects them to do. But in the moment, like what we're going to see here, the player is not able to recognize when their own play actually puts the entire team on their back foot. This is the big difference between gold and diamond players. I always like to tell gold players, it's perfectly possible for you to get to diamond. There's no reason why somebody who is in gold, who can make their way to gold, can't get to diamond. but it's the ability to recognize these situations, to put that responsibility on yourself to work with these situations and help win these situations that does enable you to move into that next rank. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to play this first fight. We're just going to let it run through, and we're going to stop it, and we're going to go back to the start of it and run it in slow motion just to analyze exactly who is doing what and what responsibilities those players have on this team. So that being said, let's play this out. I do have my co-host here, Sheer, that will be helping me analyze the game. He's a little bit higher elo than me. You can introduce yourself, Sheer. Say hi.
Hi, I'm Sheer. I'm a Masters tank player, and I play a lot of alt tank.
He plays a lot of Sigma, and this is a great thing to have him along here too, or used to play a lot more Sigma, because I'll be able to give a low-resolution perspective on the fight. I'll be able to give you a perspective that it's more about the things that should happen in the game, where Sheer will be able to give us a much higher resolution perspective as to what he thinks should be done with this specific hero. All right, that being said, let's play out this first fight.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Observe the barrier. Barrier's about to break. Barrier won't hold together. Barrier unstable. My barrier destroyed.
Alright, so technically this fight is, well, lost. You can see the attacking team here has lost 2 players on their team. Basically at this point in time, they shouldn't be pulling out. They should make sure that they're safe, they're not feeding anymore, or the other option is just go in and feed quickly. Because at this moment, the longer this fight goes on, the more they've staggered themselves. So this is kind of where the end of the fight, this is where the fight ends for the most part. We're going to pull it back a little bit. I'm going to do my initial analysis on it, and then Sheer's going to be able to give us a summary about what he saw, and of course about what I said in my opinions too within the fights. So let's bring this back. So the goal of the off-tank is to protect the team from all sorts of damage that comes in from off angles. The main tank stands in the front and takes the main brunt of the damage. Doesn't matter where it's coming from, it doesn't matter what hero it's coming from. If the main brunt of the damage is from that front line, that's what the main tank's for. If they're getting flanked by any hero, you could imagine, even if you're getting flanked by something crazy like an Ana, why would they be flanked by that? It's still up to the main tank to mitigate that extra damage coming in that may potentially destroy their team. You'll notice in this first team fight, the enemy team has set up in a very weird position. The Winston is sitting in the back, actually, and looking for a pick, with the Junkrat kind of hiding up at the top. This is going to be what the Sigma should be looking for. Now, this is a very good play somewhat from the enemy team, because they're going to coordinate a dive, and it's a very weird angle, as Sheer mentioned before, just starting to look at this going, hey, this is a really stupid play, but if it's coordinated, it's not going to be stupid. The Sigma's job is going to be stop this type of play. Doesn't matter how it's coming in. He's got all the time in the world to stand behind the Reinhardt, assess the situation, and counter them. Let's see how this plays out from up above. Alright, this first shield that comes out is actually really important, because it really shows what I was talking about before with lower elo players using their resources very early in the fight. It's okay to place a shield like this so the Reinhardt can now push up safely. And also, he should be seeing that Junkrat. I'm not going to go into that too much, but he should be seeing the Junkrat. Putting your shield out like this is okay to give your team a bit of space. But if you watch, he leaves the shield up and lets the shield essentially die before he gets to choke. What this does is it makes it very hard to move through the hardest part of the map. really the goal of a team and going through any type of choke is to save all of their abilities and get as close as possible to the enemy team before they use their abilities. You'll see, again, as we go into this, this Sigma throws his shield out early, gets it basically almost broken. It's at 26 health. Now, as we're pushing up, and I'm going to keep saying you'll notice. There's a lot of little things that we'll notice here, especially because the player, again, is a lower elo, so they're going to be missing a ton of different things. The Sigma's job in this is to make sure that his team will move through the choke safely. At this exact moment, this Sigma is not paying attention to his team at all. There's no view of where the healers are. There's no attempt to make sure that this push, is safe. And also, well, it's just very independent in its motion. You can see, I always like to bug lower elo players about this, where you are thinking about what your camera is looking at. You are always paying attention to the things that your camera is looking at. And if your camera is not looking at your team, you're not paying attention to your team. You can position yourself in places that, of course, you're not looking at your team for a few seconds. That's okay. But in a situation like this, in a choke like this, it's extremely important to make sure your team gets through safely. Now, you can see the Junkrat has decided to, well, jump the Mercy. The problem with this type of engagement, you may go, well, the Sigma does turn around and takes a look at the Junkrat and reacts to him. The problem with this is it's just a reaction. If the Sigma was planning for the Junkrat, or planning for anybody to come in and flank, with just a quick look at the enemy team composition, going, oh, who's going to be the flanker? Who's going to try and jump my team? Who's going to try and do, well, whatever. What am I going to use my abilities for? This Sigma should already be ready for a flank like this. Mercy can't do really anything about a Junkrat other than position better. And the Sigma has a perfect opportunity here, too, to place up his shield in the middle of this kind of engagement. But of course, because this is a reactionary thing, I don't like to use that, but it's a reactionary event, the Sigma actually isn't ready to protect their team. This death is 99.9% on the Sigma and 1% on the Mercy. A rock comes out for no reason. Remember, we're saying we are saving all of our abilities for a moment where we absolutely need them to go through the choke. A rock like this at a Winston far away is just going to hit the Winston. The Winston's going to be knocked down for half a second, and he's going to jump back into the fight. The Winston is going to be on top of the Sigma's team, and the Sigma's not going to have any options to deal with him. He just threw away his only anti-monkey option. Now, Ana does an excellent job at sleeping the monkey. Technically, the monkey should just stay there. And now the team is safe to move through the choke. But because this is all reactionary, the Sigma ends up waking the monkey. Also, we're going to hit a million different little tiny things in this fight. Roadhog has now hooked the Ana. This is a perfect opportunity for the Sigma to throw a shield in front of the Ana. This Sigma had a lot of different opportunities to make this push as easy as possible for the team. But it's not because of the individual mechanic skill of the player that this failed. It's because of the preparation and general game sense. As you can see, the stun on the Winston essentially did nothing. Now the Winston can engage with his team. He simply jumps over the top, puts pressure on the front line with the Reinhardt. One thing this Sigma should be doing is taking space with the Reinhardt. And this is the difference between a diamond player, again, and a lower elo player. This Reinhardt is doing his absolute best to create a safe area for his team to play in. You can see he's right up front, and obviously his team is slowly dying here, so it's a little sketchy, but he knows that his Ana is still alive, and as long as he stands there, he can maintain an area that the team can push through. It's up to the Sigma to follow up with that space, because the Sigma also creates a decent amount of space like the Reinhardt, but the Sigma is not following up. There is no physical presence of this hero taking the space that the Reinhardt has made for him. Because of that, his entire team, well, his Ana especially too, is somewhat stuck. This is okay because the Ana gets a chance to get a peek. But if the Sigma was following up much quicker with the space that the Reinhardt gave him, well, there's a very good chance things would end up a little bit better than what's going on right now. Notice too, the Sigma is somewhat standing around. Again, he's not taking space. His shield is out. The shield's not even protecting anything. Nothing's being fired at it. And again, he's looking away from his team, right? There's no teamwork going on here. Maybe you could say, well, it's to get rid of this hog and make sure the hog runs away. But the hog already runs away, and we're still committing to shooting at him. All right. Sheer, do you have anything that you would like to say about this push?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to follow up on the resources thing.
Okay.
So he immediately throws his shield out and keeps it out for way too long. That's like the first thing that I saw there. And then again with the rock, I'm guessing it was supposed to be aimed at the Junkrat, but he just did a full circle and looked at a monkey and just threw it. Then, because he's not aware of where the enemy team is, like, okay, so earlier in the fight, his Hanzo puts up a sonic arrow, and you can see that there is a hog on the left side. He doesn't put any resources towards stopping that hog whatsoever. Like, it was like way early in the fight, like 15 seconds in. You will see the hog is lit up through the wall, and that shows that the sonic arrow is there. So the Sigma here could have put a shield up, pre-fired the window, anything to stop the hog from pushing that angle and hooking his Ana.
And that's really important too. Like, it's the constant pressure and the threat that you put on the enemy team that helps your team move through spaces like this. Without putting that pressure and without putting those resources into something valuable and wasting resources by throwing shields out too early, the Sigma makes the push significantly harder than it needs to be. Now, we're going to run through the next few minutes just kind of quickly. I will summarize things as we run through them. But we'll do somewhat the same thing where we'll stop at the end of the next kind of fight. We'll take a look at the situation and see what the difference is between the main tank and the way this tank is taking space and our off tank.
Barrier won't hold together. Barrier. Outside barrier is destroyed.
All right, this game is going to get a little bit frustrating because I'm going to point out one more thing. This Sigma does not use his shift ability, or what's it called? The flux
kinetic,
ability.
The
kinetic grasp.
Yeah.
He does not use the kinetic grasp one time in this entire game to get value. And I literally mean this entire game. It's something that you commonly see among Platinum and below players. At least Platinum players will maybe get value out of their ability a few times a game. But once you start getting into the gold region and below, there will be entire games where heroes will not get a single bit of value out of a very specific ability, and this is one of those games.
Barrier's about to break. Back to me.
Small things too, like shielding or rezzing Mercy is really important there. Didn't do it. A rock out in the middle of nowhere that's not planned probably would be much better used on the hog here. Notice how the shift ability is used, but, well, no shields are gained.
Yeah, he is still not doing anything to contest the hog on the high ground. And he dies.
Because of this, the entire team is getting absolutely destroyed. There's no question about it.
Playing again.
Let's get you back in the fight.
I'm going to pause that too. I'm going to say it again. Shield the rezzing Mercy. Doesn't matter if it doesn't seem like there's no damage coming in or anything like that. These are the small things that a diamond player does that a gold player absolutely does not. This is an excellent example of that.
It's the same thing with any off-tank ability. Like, if you're Zarya, you should follow your Mercy.
Diva, defense matrix her.
Hog, you can stand in front of her. One block. anything to protect your Mercy. While she's resting.
Another rock that gets no value.
You'll also see that he doesn't really look at any flanks. So far, he's not looked at a single flank.
This is an awareness about abilities thing too. I know I said I'd play this through, but this stuff is really important. You can see at a moment like this, where the soldier starts ulting. This is the easiest thing for Sigma to counter. You put a shield in front of the soldier, and when your shield breaks, you press the shift button, and you gain a whole bunch of shield. But nothing is done to counter it. Not even the shift ability, where he takes a bunch of damage to the face.
Also, I'd like to say that he has kept his shield up throughout this entire fight at around half health behind their team.
Exactly. No value. And it's still sitting there. And the Ana is fighting a Roadhog. The Ana needs that shield, if anything, right now.
Barrier is unstable.
Objective A captured.
Still doesn't take down the shield. Finally, it goes down. Okay.
So let's point this out. I'm going to go over this too in the next round because the enemy team does this and this team doesn't. It's very important for at least one of the tanks to make as much space as possible in situations like this. I'm not going to focus on this one too much because there is the, what they could do. But note this situation. How the tanks have pushed up, how the team has pushed up, how the team has taken space, which they haven't, and how the enemy team now has taken a power position. This is a position that's going to be very, very hard for the enemy team to push, or for red team to push through. And so when we do watch the next round, you will see blue team here actually engage the way that red team should be, which is pushing up, taking the space, letting the payload push up behind them. And even if they die, this is very important too, even if they were to die as tanks, if the Sigma and Reinhardt pushed all the way forward, the payload would still be moving. And that's the most important thing. Because if the tanks die all the way up here, they just simply respawn back, and the team that's on the payload pulls back and regroups with them. So the death, even though it's feeding, actually isn't too bad. We will look at a much better example of this a little bit later. Small damage prioritization thing, and this is probably killing Sheer right now. There's a soldier to the top right, and there's a Junkrat to the top left. If you think about it, a shield actually will do a lot more work against a soldier than a Junkrat, because the Junkrat is just going to blow his way through the shield. It's like 3 or 4 shots, and he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. If you throw a shield in front of a hit scan, the hit scan, it's going to take a lot more time for them to break through that type of barrier. And not only that too, if you look at a projectile, it's much easier to dodge projectile than it is hit scan. So if you're blocking reliable damage that technically should hit you 100% of the time versus unreliable damage like a Junkrat that maybe hits you 40% of the time, the Sigma should be putting, the shield up in front of the soldier here instead of, putting it in a place that it's just going to get broken. Keep an eye out too. We're not going to focus on this fight too much because this is a little bit of a messy one. But watch the Reinhardt and how uncomfortable he seems to be with the Sigma shield placement because he's looking for the space that the Sigma is helping him take. Just keep in mind that he's going to be kind of on his back foot the entire time because of this. Just watch it as we go along. Again, shield should be right up in front of the soldier there, blocking his path. Hog again is hooked to the team with no support stopping the Hog hook. With no tank support stopping the Hog. I'm going to pause this. Why is there no shield out? Now, Ana's being super risky by going out and doing something like this. So, this is, again, Diamond, but, so Ana's not going to make the best of decisions. But if we're going to make the most out of something like this, well, let's think about this. If we put a shield up, if we rock him, if we... Also, we have our ultimate too. So these are easy kills that we could actually get. It may not be the highest value ultimate, because you can use your ultimate to counter enemy ultimates. But in a situation like this, if you want to keep the enemy staggered and make it so that they don't group up and hit you guys all on payload, it's definitely probably worth it to ult. I do want to get Shear's view on this, though. Shear, what do you think about a situation like this?
In a situation like this, obviously a shield should be put out, and the Ana and the Sigma can team up on. Who is that sleeping? Is that the soldier? I think it is. Yeah.
That's the soldier. Soldier slept.
All right. So, big thing there. So even if the ult gets kills, it's not always going to be the best time to ult, even if there's like more than 2 people there, because an ult that stops a single ult cancels out, but it also gains more value for your team because your team can follow up on it. So
all right,
an ability that stops an ult is better than an ult that stops an ult.
Okay. So one of the reasons why I'm pointing this out, and I even did paraphrase too, that's probably not the best use of the ultimate, right? But we're gonna keep playing this through, and I want you to tell me, would it be more useful to use your ultimate here, or when he actually uses his ultimate? I'll let you say that when we... The rock misses the soldier, but it easily kills him. So we don't have to deal with the soldier.
You didn't even need to use rock. You use rock. Okay.
Would it have been useful using it to kill the soldier there as opposed to that?
So
Probably.
the way that he uses his ult there is just so confusing because he doesn't aim it properly at all. Like it definitely would have been more valuable to get the soldier with the ult, especially since the Winston was in there as well.
Yes, exactly. So what we want to focus on is the ability and the resource usage here. And this is the difference, as I'm always pointing out, between a gold player and a diamond player. At least a diamond player will get some value out of the resources that they're using. Whereas in many of these fights, there is absolutely no value being put out by having a Sigma standing around. Notice all the downtime. You could be firing, you could be putting shields up, doing all sorts of different things. They do end up getting this point.
Its positioning makes me cringe.
They easily killed the Junkrat there. Okay, so quickly, the Sigma here completely forgot that he let the Junkrat go.
Yeah,
Completely forgot that he let the Junkrat go.
that's what I was about to point out.
When a diamond player sees a dangerous player in the back, they will focus all of their attention on stopping that dangerous player, because that dangerous player is the #1 problem. They don't have to worry too much about the front line, because if you lose by them destroying your back line, the front line didn't matter in the first place. This is an excellent example of that.
He loses both healers to a Junkrat ult.
Again, that's probably the first shift ability we've seen since the first point, and no value from it.
Haven't we done this before?
A small thing that's probably rustling Shear's jimmies is the hog was ulting there, but no shift ability was used.
Yeah, that's an easy 400 shields for you. finally, that's the first time I've seen stopped hook this entire game.
Yeah, I know. That's the first rock that I've seen that's gotten even the slight bit of value. There's situations like this where our ultimate is going to be very, very valuable. The enemy team
That's
is
just
piled
what
up
I was
on the
talking
corner.
to myself about.
Yes.
I was talking to myself like, this is the most valuable ult you can have.
I'll let you explain it. Go ahead.
So, you see, like, he takes a corner peek around and sees their team. He sees that they're grouped up. You can either use your ult to split them up or kill them. Because
Yeah, exactly.
splitting them makes it easier for your team to kill them, and as well as also lifting them up in the air is easier for your team to kill them.
All right, so let's see how this plays out.
Heroes never die.
Soldiers on the high ground, that shield should be up blocking.
So another thing I'm noticing with this play is
Let me pause it so you catch up. Go ahead.
so another thing I'm noticing with this play is ability interactions. He's just wasting rock when the hog still has heal, or when the monkey still has jump. Like, you should be looking for those key moments when you can cancel an ability. That's all. That's really all I can say.
Okay, that's exactly it. And that's why I'm always pointing out that lower elo players waste their abilities fairly early. Once you get to a certain point, if you use your abilities on low value enemy abilities, well, you're not going to have your abilities up for the high value enemy abilities.
Score 0-3.
Okay.
Switching sides. Initiating match.
So this enemy team basically runs over them in with twice the time left on the counter. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look again from the perspective of the Sigma, but we'll also take a look too about how the enemy team, the entirety of the enemy team, puts complete pressure as a team on their front line. Coordinated pressure that they didn't have, that red team didn't have, with the Sigma getting basically no value from a lot of their different abilities. All right, let's just run this through.
Attackers
There is
incoming
no
in
obligation.
30 seconds.
Soon we'll see if the hypotheses are correct.
Nothing I haven't seen before. Stick together. We will complete our mission.
5,
Okay.
4, 3.
I'm going to put my opinion in here. Sheer can give me an idea about what he thinks about it too. And this is the way I play Sigma. This is the way I've seen other Sigmas play in double shield with a Reinhardt. Not necessarily with Orisa. This is very different, but with a Reinhardt. Because your Reinhardt is your main tank. One of the big things that you can do as Sigma is place your shield behind the enemy tanks so that it blocks the damage and healing, the healing from the healers and the damage from the DPS. Because what that does is it'll block the exact same kind of abilities that are coming out, but it'll also block the healing, so you're getting double value from it. You've got your Reinhardt shield in front of your team, so your shield doesn't need to be in front of your team, blocking your team, but it can block the same damage by being out in front. Sheer, any thoughts about that?
It's basically the same value as a Mei wall, like walling off an enemy tank so that your team can follow up.
2, 1.
Excellent way of putting it.
Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Barrier in place.
I'm going to pause this quickly. Notice how this player forgets about the front line completely. Just ignores the front line. Looks away from his team. Doesn't pay attention to where his tank is or his main tank is. Doesn't even attempt to control the choke. The shield, too, even, is just left there. There's really no value that comes out of it. Now, I will point out there's a little bit of unintentional value because both the healers are now stuck in behind and can't actually do anything, and they're busy fighting the Doomfist. So there is a little bit of unintentional value here, but nonetheless, you can actually see the team is going to win, or the blue team at least has pushed through the choke. Now, Sheer, this is going to be a very confusing fight. You're going to go, what the heck just went on here once I play it out. And we'll see why after we replay this fight. Again, another waste of an ability. I want to point this out. This guy right here, again, this is Joller. This is our local Diamond Moira player. He knows the Sigma's not doing anything, and so he disrespects the crap out of him. Let's go back a little bit. Look at this. Now, he recognizes right away that Sigma's not hitting his shots. He recognizes right away that Sigma missed his rock. So what can he do now? Well, he can just disrespect him. A good Sigma would not allow this to happen. And a good Moira knows that a good Sigma would not allow this to happen. But because this higher ELO player recognizes the failures on the point of the lower ELO player, he takes advantage of it and pushes forward. And the point is lost.
Yeah, I understand how that happened. So
All right.
there were two flankers in the back line, and they just destroyed it.
Okay. Now, how is that a failure upon the Sigma?
The Sigma just completely ignored the Genji walking by him, and also didn't notice the Junkrat behind him.
Yep.
So
All of that comes from, sorry, I don't want to interrupt here too much, but all of that comes from the fact that they've completely ignored the front line or the back line in the first place. This camera movement that we're looking at right here is a selfish camera movement. At a moment like this, when you know there's somebody in the back line, you should always be turning around and making sure that you're there to protect the team.
this is the camera movement of a gold DPS player.
It
just wants
exactly
kills.
it. You'll notice this is the Diamond Tank player. The Diamond Tank player recognizes right away that something's going wrong, and he goes in to help them as quickly as he possibly can. If you look at the team composition, you can kind of imagine who might be the best to deal with a Junkrat and a Genji. Well, looking at the team, it's going to be the Sigma. Sigma's got a little bit of long range, can bash, he can basically burn down the Junkrat, stop the Junkrat's bombs, all those kind of things, can rock the Genji. Maybe the Doomfist can deal with the Genji, but the Doomfist really can't deal with a Junkrat. It should be up to the Sigma in this kind of situation to deal with the Junkrat. And you can even see the Doom, when he tries to deal with the Junkrat, ends up dying. All while Sigma is up front fighting a battle that doesn't really exist.
Allow me to repair the damage.
Thank you.
That is a type of fight where technically red team should have won, but because one of the players on the team decides to play a little bit selfish and decides to kind of play by himself, the enemy team takes advantage of that right away. We're not going to go into the specifics of all what the enemy team is doing, and I know for sure, I know a little bit about what this guy here, Joller, is thinking, so I can kind of point out things like, I know he's disrespecting the Sigma. I know he's taking advantage of the fact that the Sigma is, that the Sigma's not doing his job. So I can kind of speak for him here. Can't really speak for the rest of the team, but I can assume, I'm going to assume because of the ELO, that it's the same thing that the rest of the players are thinking. Oh, Sigma's way out front, the DPS are going, ha! Free backline. Because if you were a Zarya, and you're a Zarya Reinhardt, the Zarya should be bubbling the healers and helping the healers out when the DPS jump them. It's always important, too, to think about what value could I get if I was playing a different hero. Because you may be able to get some types of value out of it, but if you can match that value, so if you get the same value out of Zarya as you do the Sigma, then, well, you're going to win fights. If you get no value out of them, then this is what happens. Also, too, we're not gonna talk about jumping on top of the dead Junkrat.
Yeah, that
Actually,
that kind of made me angry.
one more thing I want you guys to take a look at is, at this exact moment, Sigma and Reinhardt can win this fight. It's literally just a Junkrat and a Reinhardt. If the Sigma hit his shots on the Junkrat and they both focused him, the Junkrat's dead. The Genji here is basically one hit. So if the Sigma comes in and clutches this by killing both of these guys, things would be a lot easier. But we get no value. We ignore the really low health Genji to the right side, and we take a million years to kill something that probably should have been killed quite a while ago, and then we jump on top of the bombs, which could have been eaten by the shift. So at least you added some value. So you eat the shift, or so you eat the bombs with your kinetic grasp. You get shields. Now he can turn around and stall for time and deal with things like that.
Thank you.
That's another ability interactions thing at the end there.
Yes, it is. It is.
Hello. I'm in aid.
The universe,
Objective lost.
isn't it?
All right.
The payload.
Remember what we were talking about too in the last push about the tanks pushing up and taking space. This is what this team is doing. Now I believe the tanks do end up dying on this push. The blue team they do end up dying here, but keep in mind, even though they are dying up front, the payload is still moving. And the payload will be moving the entire time. The goal in a situation like this is to get your team as close as possible to, well, the enemy team and make them staggered, right? You have 6 people. Basically, it's 6v4 at this moment, right? If the team just pushes in and rushes them and kills them, you're good to go. Now, I've seen this VOD already. This shield throws the entire fight. Because what should happen is the team should be pushing up into this. But because the shield has been placed so far back, now the entire team has to rotate around this one specific point. And then the shield is just left there. Watch the Reinhardt push up, okay? Reinhardt is now looking for his next Sigma shield. He's kind of keeping his eye out and looking for a Sigma to put up a shield up front so he can now push into that space. But you can see his confusion a little bit too. He does see the enemy team push in behind, so he's got to pull back, but it's also it's not very strong in the motion. There's nothing really that he's doing that's, directly affecting the fight. This Reinhardt is kind of on his back foot here. And also, this shield has not moved again. Reinhardt's pushing up. You may go, well, if they lose the fight, they're feeding, but take a look. Payload's still moving. Remember what I said? When the tanks die up front, all the team on the payload needs to do is just back up and regroup. And that's what they do. Look at this Sigma shield. We're not going to focus on the micro here too much. But, because we know that the Sigma's not using their shift or their rock anyways. So, let's just assume we're going to work around the shield. One ability at a time, the maximum value. This shield is now a liability. Something that's really, really important, and that this is why I hate playing in Platinum, and maybe Sheer can give me a little bit more after this once I say it, about this type of information. In a situation like this, where it's a 6v5, and that's what this is, it's a 6v5, red team needs to push up. Actually, it's a 6v4. They have the advantage. They should be able to go in there and kill. What happens a lot of lower elos is people go, group up, we need to stand at a spot that normally we stand at when pros fight and things like that. Well, the reason why pros stand at those specific spots is because they're forcing these 6v6 situations. But in a moment like this, where it is a 6v5, the team should just be pushing forward. But look at our Sigma. Our Sigma is hanging out in the back, putting no pressure, and not even helping our Reinhardt push forward here in any way. The Reinhardt is actually being really aggressive and attempting to make that play. He knows the enemy's on their back foot. You can see he's standing there trying to be aggressive. But look at this shield. As I said, the shield's a liability. It's getting spammed down, and it's not actually giving the team any space to fight in. If the shield was just forward a little bit further, at least the Reinhardt would be able to step forward into this Reinhardt and start swinging. And, as Sheer said before, you can treat it like a Mei wall. If you put that shield in behind the Reinhardt, now that Reinhardt no longer has any healing, and your Reinhardt can just swing it down. But we haven't seen that shield move once yet. Everybody's in front of it.
Yeah. So
Another
thing I'd like to add to that is in that 6v4 situation, the Sigma should be the one to be taking space rather than the Reinhardt. Because the shield on Sigma can move infinitely in one direction until it hits something. So you can basically use that to your advantage and push it forward behind the cart into the enemy so that your Reinhardt can push up and swing. That's just a resource management there. Like
exactly, it's dealing with threats because Reinhardt has to get himself into the fight. Reinhardt has to put himself into danger to put value into the fight. Sigma does not. Sigma can throw his shield out, and his shield will be, the shield will put effect into the enemy team, but it doesn't put the Sigma at danger, and that's very important. Notice the Sigma is just chilling out in the back. This shield could have gone forward a lot further. And even though it broke, which is not very good, and the only reason why it broke is because it was sitting in behind the team for 30 seconds, that shield could have pushed straight into the healers here and stopped them overall. Now, we'll take a look at this, and this is actually because of the Sigma shield placement. And I'll let you give a little bit more perspective too on this. But I want to point out what is the reason to, or I want to kind of bring up the question: what is the reason to back up? Because really, the reason to back up is to group up. If you're at a disadvantage, you back up and you group up. But in a situation like this, where both teams are 6v6, they're ready for a fight. What the defending team's goal is to go in, either kill the team or get their ultimates out. Okay? While they're doing that, while they're going in and killing the team, they have to be stopping the payload. But this being on even ground, and it's actually not because the Sigma's wasted his resources, so now they have to pull back. This being on even ground, the fight should happen right at this choke. But now the team's pulling back and the payload's being pushed for free. There's a Sigma shift ability that got no value.
It's
We won't worry about that ultimate too much. Because it's all about the positioning here, more than anything else. They have not stopped the payload once here.
And it's still an even fight too, because you just got to res off. Actually, no, they're up. They're up by 2. Why are they backing up? Why are they backing up? There should be no reason to back up here. And you'll see that the Genji destroys their team, even though he's not like 2 health throughout that entire blade.
Yep. This payload does not stop once throughout this entire push. Now, I always like to tell people that the midpoint of most payload maps, whether or not it's hybrid maps or just direct payload maps, is almost a wash in lower ranks. And this is the reason, because lower ranks don't understand why people are doing specific plays. They don't understand really what the goal is in stopping the payload. And so the payload often, in Platinum and below, will just move. It'll just keep going and going and going and going. And that's what's happening here.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Alright, let's go back to our signal. Okay. 1. Where's the shield?
Most likely behind the team. Yep.
Two, payload's still moving. Because the shield's behind, the Reinhardt now can't push forward into the space that a Sigma shield gave him. The shield doesn't even give the Reinhardt space here. This is a selfish shield. This is a shield that stops right in front of him and holds the corner And the payload's still pushing.
Holy stick.
Double
My barrier is
And then the shield
destroyed.
breaks. Because it took a fire strike for no reason. Now, let's bring this to a much lower resolution or a much more, you could say, meta discussion. If this player was actually a diamond or a high platinum player, they would have recognized 5 minutes ago that they're not getting any abilities out and they're not stopping things like hog hooks and they're not using their shift ability and all this kind of stuff. They would recognize that. And that would be reflected in their play. But because this player doesn't even understand the win conditions of these fights, they're not attempting to use their abilities in the way that actually wins those fights. They're just kind of throwing abilities out and hoping that the fight happens.
See,
Things like Reinhardt Fire Strikes, that probably tilted Sheer a little bit, didn't it?
yeah, it did. Although I do that a lot as well. Like the fire strike, I'll see it and then I'll accidentally throw my shield out and just take it with the shield.
But he could have pressed his shift too and gotten shields out.
Yeah.
Okay, reasonable level.
Barrier in place.
Here's another massive hook by the enemy team, and the shield doesn't go to protect him.
My ultimate is
He
ready.
just stops it right there. That shield could have kept going. Also, we got Graviton Flux. That Flux probably could have stopped the Reinhardt from dying there. Would have put enough disruption on the enemy team to stop them from dying. Now they're on their back foot. Notice that the payload still has not stopped. It stopped for a second because Reinhardt got hooked onto it. But there's no space in here where the tanks actually stop the payload. Another fire strike took to the face with a shift ability. Reasonable rock.
Some zinc for my...
Soldier is ulting and needs a shield. But he doesn't get one.
You'll also notice that so this flux is very low value. Why? Because it's getting both tanks.
The tanks drop down, the healers heal them up, the healers get ult charge. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's actually, this kind of ult actually works against you. If he got the healers and everything like that in this, maybe it'd be more valuable because he doesn't get the kill. But notice, Ana gets the healing up, and actually we can take a look. Does Ana already have her ultimate before that?
Yeah.
Nope. Nope. Oh, no, yeah. 96. Let's take a look at Joller's ultimate. The Moira here. Look at that. Look how fast that ultimate charge goes up. After the Sigma ults. Another fire strike. A nano boosted fire strike that was not taken by the shift ability. A shift ability comes out for no apparent reason.
I think that was like his third flux the whole game.
its destination.
Yeah, third flux, but only second one that actually hits.
Yeah.
Stardust to stardust.
Doesn't swap to a stall hero.
Definitely should
There's no ball, no instinct, no diva. Nothing comes out.
shift ability for no reason.
Round 2.
So if we think about what value did the Sigma have on the attack and what value did the Sigma have on the defense, actually nothing. Like literally nothing. And as I'm going to keep coming to it, this is something that a diamond or a high platinum player will at least recognize. A masters player doesn't get no value in the first place. I know it's a bad sentence, but a masters player can read these situations and very, very rarely gets absolutely zero value in a fight.
See, I've had that happen to me a couple times where I'm not playing well, and that's when you just decide to swap.
Switching
Yeah,
sides.
swapping is a big one because you're being countered. You may get more value from another hero, another thing. But even if, and Sheer has one tricked before, if you're getting no value, you have to force value, right? You're always looking for little things that you can do to add value into those fights.
You can think of the value as a percentage out of 100.
Mhm.
Like there's maximum value at 100% and no value at 0%. Right now, I'm seeing like 20% maximum value out of the Sigma play.
That's an excellent way of putting it. That's what we're getting. We're
Ready.
out of all the usage that out of all the ability usage, we're maybe hitting 20% of our shots, hitting 20% of our cooldowns, and our shield is being used for like 20% of what it could be used for.
He's still not looking for any flanks.
I wanted to play this really quickly, despite them doing the exact same thing last push. Right? Like, literally the exact same thing as they did last push. Still no attention to it. Notice this camera too, completely looking away from anybody that might still be alive. The shield is up. Who knows where the shield is? He's going up against a Junkrat. Where's the shield? At least if you're going to kill him, you need to go in with some kind of ability. But then it's like this long chase. What's that yakety sack? Yeah. You know, that's all I'm hearing in my head right now.
And because he chases, he gets no value out of his shift, and he's going to die. Yeah.
Feeds.
Now this Junkrat has 70% ult.
60 seconds remaining.
Okay. Pause it. He's used all of his resources before the team has gone through the choke again.
Because we know he's not going to use his shift ability. That's just not something he does.
Let's assume. Alright. This is our other diamond tank. He's getting very irritated. He doesn't want to play with his off tank anymore. That's why he picks Hog. Because his off tank isn't helping him in any way. We have not seen a single play coordinated between the main tank and the off tank. And so what happens in this situation is the main tank goes, well, if you're not going to coordinate with me, I'm going to go a solo carry hero. I'm going to go a hero that I have to, or that I'm responsible for my own survival. Well, this fight, they do end up pushing their way through.
That was
Notice
that was a good rock on the Hog there.
It was. So that's actually one good value. But it's still a 20%, you know. Rock straight into the shield.
The objective must be taken.
Okay, this is even more dangerous now because the player that is doing nothing is now the main tank. There's another hook. Why was there not a shield there to help him? We saw him push up. We saw him try to go in. It's not the best mistake, or it's not the best idea from the ally McCree, but the ally McCree is probably thinking, well, if I stand up here, my tanks are going to come help me.
10 seconds.
Everyone at that.
Objective A captured. Escort.
Remember what we talked about pushing up? Notice how the diamond tank is now doing that, while the not diamond tank is standing on payload. The enemy team will take advantage of the exact thing that we talked about in the previous round, of making sure that you engage the fight when you have the advantage, not when you think it should happen on the map. There's no reason for the enemy to pull back here if they group up. And this is basically what they do. If the tanks were pushed up, if somebody was pushed up and slowed the enemy down from jumping on them, then at least they'd be able to push the payload forward a little bit further. But let's watch what happens.
Overtime.
Retrieving the barrier.
Standing on the payload, getting literally no value. Now, this is a diamond team. You can see how scattered they are, and lower elo players will think like, what? Why is the enemy team so scattered? But this is about timing. If you take a look at the time bar down at the bottom, teamwork is not about where you stand. It's about how close together you use your abilities. and how close together you engage in certain situations. So Hog flanks. We could be stopping him. We've already been over this before. It's the Sigma's job to watch for these kind of things and stop that type of push. The enemy team at the front recognizes their Hog is going on a flank, and so they're going to push really hard. This is, again, our wonderful Moira, who is disrespecting everybody on the enemy team by playing like this. She is just going, I don't think you guys are coordinated enough. I don't think you're doing your job. And so I'm just going to run forward and put the same pressure on the team or put the pressure on the team when the rest of my team is doing whatever they're doing, right? It's like everybody's now putting pressure on them. But there's no space. So that's what I'm saying. It's very dangerous. This is very, very dangerous to have the lowest ELO player and the player that's not even at their specific rank, at the rank that they're playing at, being the main tank. This is a lot of the reasons why I play main tank. If I have a worse, because I'm like 27, 28 on average for tank, I can hit diamond. But if we have like a gold tank, if the system gives me a gold tank secondary person or whatever duo, I always go main tank. Because now you can see the main tank is turned around and the enemy's starting to engage the front line. You can go, well, yeah, we killed the Hog. But look, Nanoed Winston on the payload, Genji blading, Moira ulting, Junkrat ulting. They're all engaging at this choke. And this all happens because, well, the Sigma didn't push up. So we've maybe had one effective ultimate to the entire time.
3 to 4.
Out of 4 ultimates.
Switching sides. Initiating match.
Also, four ultimates in what is it? 3 rounds.
Yeah.
That's a little bit on the low end for a diamond team.
A little bit.
Ready for
Oh,
battle.
yeah, just a little bit.
No obligation for the universe to make sense to you.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
Working with you again, Dr. Ziegler.
And under better circumstances, too.
Now they're running a bunker comp.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Probably Munch's idea or Chomp's idea.
Yeah.
From Bastion. Okay. Whoa, that's too fast. Way too fast. Mouse. As the off tank, and we've said this a million times, it's your job to watch the flank. It's your job to watch the angles that your team cannot watch. Really what the Sigma should be doing is chilling out about right here, watching for flanks, maybe taking some shots down range, but really always making sure the enemy team doesn't flank. Look at the camera movement. So he notices they're pushing to the right, but then goes, I don't really care. Now, a Winston jumping in on a Bastion is dead anyways. There's no point in engaging on something like this. Because he turns around, we now have the exact same situation that we had the first defense. The Sigma is now doing his own thing, while the enemy DPS are jumping around in the back line.
We'll have to talk to him later about this.
No, he'll see it. You don't have to... It's fine. I've already talked to him. I'll never go over this. And look at this. Like, what is this kind of movement? What is this? This is so selfish. There's nothing stopping the enemy team here other than, oh no, I need to survive. And the Baptiste is out front healing, but like, and also the Orisa is fighting, but we're running away from something as the main tank. Junkrat's to the left could kill him, but there's no support on top. I'm not even going to mention that rock, because that doesn't matter.
because he comes out so late in the fight.
There's no value there.
See, he,
Alright.
he just keeps focusing down the tanks without looking for
Problem must
an
lie
easier
elsewhere.
target.
So, what are the enemy tanks going to do at this point in time to get past this choke? Look what they're doing. Exactly what we talked about that the Sigma did not do with the team at all. They push up and they make an engagement. They make an early engagement. Payload is pushing forward, no problem, nothing stopping it. They get a pick on the Doomfist, an early pick. That's what keeps the team staggered.
This is how you can tell which team is going to win a game.
Exactly. Now, notice how the diamond tank pushes right up. He dies up here because he's alone, but he has to. And where's the team? Well, everybody's dead. And they win. Now, what do you think overall was the Sigma's biggest problem? And this is really important because the biggest problem, if you fix the biggest problem, well then you're going to get the most amount of SR from it. So what do you think in that?
What I'm thinking is positioning. Just straight up positioning compared to his team, as a tank in general.
Ready for battle.
Okay, can I add, I want to add a little bit onto that then. So what it is, at least to me, I'm seeing is the lack of focus in actually helping the team. Because if there was a pure focus in helping the team, then the positioning would just be much better overall. Like, it would just result in the need to help the team. Because there's no thought about where the healers are, where the DPS are, really any of those kind of things, even where his other tank is, the positions just make no sense. Because, well, there's no reading of the battlefield, and so there's no reading of his own play. There's no reflection of his own play. Now, Sheer, is it clear that this player is a lower ELO player than everybody else?
Definitely.
Very clear.
You can see it in his skill shots, his positioning. You can see the way he thinks by his movement.
Exactly. And this is the conclusion that we really want to come to in something like this. Even if this player was to play a game with Grandmasters and hit his marks and win the game, that would not make up for a game like this where he got no value. If somebody is, again, a higher ELO player of any sort, they're going to force value whether or not the enemy team is better than them. Even if the enemy team is significantly better than them, then there will be some sort of value. For example, a high platinum Sigma player will always rock or attempt to rock a diving Grandmaster Winston, right? He can still hit that mark. Or if he's playing Zarya, he can still bubble someone. He can still do those things. But it's the recognition of the failure of those things that creates that higher ELO player.